Muito bem, pessoal, então nós estamos aqui agora tendo a honra, a grande oportunidade de poder conversar com Vittorio Gallese, um grande nome dentro das questões de neurociência em diversos aspectos. Ele é um grande desbravador de vários conhecimentos e automaticamente muito do que o Vittorio Gallese vem trabalhando vem sendo utilizado dentro do campo da neurociência aplicada à arquitetura, justamente porque ele trabalha questões que envolvem bastante a relação humana com o espaço. Então a gente vai ter aqui uma oportunidade única. Nós já estamos aqui celebrando esse momento, tenho certeza que para você está sendo muito proveitoso também. Jéssica, você começa? Quer que eu comece? Vamos lá.
Vittorio, first of all, thank you for your...
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure. Obrigado.
Perfect.
It's a big honor to us and of course everyone in Brazil and everywhere to listen to you. And we would like to know more about your perspective about this connection between neuroscience and the buildings, the environment, and this type of things, because...
Yeah. Well, neuroscience is a very complex field where you have colleagues who deal with different aspects and different level of description. Some people study single neuron or even parts of neurons, like dendritic spines, neurotransmitters. Other neuroscientists like me are more interested to study the brain and the body at a more integrative level. So ask yourself, what should be cognitive neuroscience all about? It should be about human cognition, if you study human beings. Then what does human cognition amounts to? Normally people would answer, well, first of all, with language, which is of course true, but not only with language, but also with symbols, cultural artifacts, which means art, literature, cinema, architecture, and the like. So contrary to many of my colleagues, from many years, I think that one of the duty of cognitive neuroscience is to investigate the neurobiological and physiological underpinning of our cultural practices. So architecture is clearly one of the oldest form of expression of human creativity and intelligence, so it could easily be one of the target of our investigation.
Okay, thank you. Vittorio, please, you have a wonderful approach in relation to space, body, and brain.
Yeah.
And when we were talking about the motricity and how you perceive, but at the same time you respond to the environment, is something that really is impressive to architecture.
Yeah.
Because when you design a space to have movement, to have perception, and in this field, how do you think that the architecture, but in the field of architecture practice, the architects could use some knowledge, having in mind something that you said, that we have some different perspectives, different points of view. In your opinion, what do you think that should be the main point to architects understand in this moment? Because actually we are just giving the first baby steps, isn't it? So,
yes, yes.
Yeah. So
we are at the beginning of this journey, so to speak.
And people like you and others here, you are writing the history, actually, because that's a fact. Because we are just creating something from now on.
Yes.
And you are part of that. So
yeah.
If you could bring a kind of having in mind this.
Well, I think it is a difficult enterprise. Like any time you try to have different disciplines with a different background, with a different level of description, with a different jargon, with a different background knowledge, to entertain first a dialogue, more mutual knowledge, but eventually and hopefully also a factual collaboration. This is not an easy job for anyone, so one should be aware of that. That said, I think that there's a lot of common ground between cognitive neuroscience and, or at the very least, the way I see cognitive neuroscience and architecture. And this common ground is to adopt an anthropological perspective. So, since the House of Adam onwards, what a famous book, I think one of the main purposes of architecture is to make human life better under a variety of point of view. Some people emphasize beauty, some people emphasize the commodity aspect, utility aspect, the social aspect, the ethical aspect. These are all ways in which architecture, historically speaking, has contributed to make human life better. And it remains, probably, if you ask me, its chief or main goal. So if you adopt an anthropological perspective, in order to do good architecture, it can be highly relevant to understand what does it mean to be human. And in that respect, the contribution of neuroscience can be highly relevant. Not just because I do experiments, I take the readout of the fMRI scanner, then I come to your practice and tell you, you know what, I studied the brain, you should design this building like this or like that. It's not like that. This is a pure illusion. It's wasted time, actually. I think the contribution can be highly relevant to the extent that through neuroscience, as well as through many other disciplines, and people brought that up at the summer school, sociology, anthropology, dynamic psychology, history. I mean, they are all relevant in allowing us a better understanding of what does it mean to be human. So in that respect, if through neuroscience we learn, for example, the nature of space, how space is mapped by our brain and our body, that might be highly relevant to design interior spaces, buildings, to plan the urban layout of cities. If we become also through neuroscience aware that our culture is made of social practices, of habits, these habits clearly are very much influenced by the environment in a broader sense of the term in which they occur. So this is the meaning of the famous 4E, embodied, enacted, extended, embedded. So embeddedness is your work. I mean, you embed us in cities, you embed us in buildings, you embed us in rooms, in offices, in public spaces. So I think there is a lot to do together, although it will take a long time. And I think it's a bottom-up process. We have to start with young scholars, with the young generation. People of my age are more hard to convince of the relevance of this interdisciplinary approach, I think.
Yeah. Could you say that that it's a kind of a new generation of thinking architecture? Could you?
Well, I don't have to say anything too specific about architecture, about which I'm fully ignorant. So I think that the more we talk to one another, the more we set the condition for a fruitful dialogue. This might, on the one hand, change architecture like it could change the neuroscience itself. I mean, we need to talk more to one another. I think that's the first duty that we should keep in mind.
To maintain the dialogue open.
Yes, and eventually collaborate.
Yeah.
Once we know each other better.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Vittorio, thank you very much for your attention, for giving this opportunity to have your work and your words and thoughts shared with Brazilian audience, with us, and maybe probably in Switzerland too. And it's amazing to have the opportunity to be side by side with you and with your journey. It's something you have a lot of admirers in Brazil.
Okay.
You probably
So,
don't know that, but you have some.
hello Brazil, and thank you for having me with you today.
It's a
Bye-bye.
pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Até a próxima, pessoal.